Thank you very much. Tea prices in the world is influenced by a number of factors, including the ones we have talked about. Number one, is a common rule in economics that supply and demand forces has direct influence on pricing. So currently, the key factors that affects prices in the Mombasa auction include number one, the global supply of tea, the global demand, the geopolitical factors that has affected basically the major tea importing countries, the economic aspects when it comes to the economies of the major tea importing countries. For instance, currently Pakistan buys 40% of the teas from this auction. And in the year 2021, 2022, 2023, they were having a lot of challenges with dollar acquisition. So when this happens, it means the importers of tea from Pakistan, their buying or purchasing power reduced because they could not access dollars, and the auction is dollar denominated. So the issues of exchange rate directly affects the purchasing capacity of the tea importing countries. Number two, we have issues of changing taste and preferences. Over time, the traditional market leaders in terms of tea import the markets are shrinking because initially UK was the market leader, followed by Egypt. Pakistan was at number 3. The tables have been turned, Pakistan number 1, Egypt number 2. UK has the consumption or the imports have reduced from the market leader of above 35%, currently they're doing 9%. That means in Europe, the consumption trends have changed. So that means that the industry must be alive to the changing taste and preferences, because the current generation, they do not prefer the traditional or conventional brewed black CTC tea, but they are going for other categories of teas like ready to drink, the flavored teas, the iced teas. So it is in the interest of the trade to address all those market dynamics, the geopolitical, socio-economic, the supply, because the year 2024, 2023, 2024, there was a big mismatch between supply and demand. Global tea production rose from 6.2 billion in 2022 to 6.6 billion in 2023. At the same time, the global consumption shrank from 6.3 billion to 6.2 billion kilos. That means that in that year alone, there was an oversupply of 400 million kilos. When there is an oversupply in a specific year, it means there is a huge carryover of huge stocks of over 400 million to the next year, which negatively impacted the tea prices in 2024, both in Mombasa auction, Colombo auction, and the auctions, small auctions in India. So we are alive to those factors, but we are glad that stability is coming back to the trade. At least the supply end has been addressed. Currently, the absorption rate is very high. That means demand has grown, and we have seen gradual improvement of the tea prices and uptake from the auction. Thank you very much for that question on climate change. Climate change is a major factor that influences tea production directly. At the same time, it also influences the global tea prices. So as East Africa, or as Kenya as a country, we have built the capacity of our members to adopt what we call climate resilient adaptation measures in the tea growing countries and tea growing zones in Kenya. What I mean is that We've partnered with our producers and the Tea Research Institute. Number one is to develop what we call climate resilient cultivars, the cultivated tea varieties that are resilient to drought, resilient to frost bites, resistant to diseases and pests. Because currently, because of climate change, we currently have what we call unpredictable rainfall patterns. If they do come, the distribution is poorly, the rains are poorly distributed. Number two, we have prolonged incidences of drought, increased incidences of frost, increased incidences of hailstones, increasing incidences of pests and diseases in tea. So number one, to tackle this is to move away from the traditional clones that have been grown in this country over time. And Tea Research Institute has done one of the best things for the region to produce the climate resilient cultivars that are able to withstand the changing dynamics in climate. Number two, in tea production, the producers do use wood as a source of fuel. We are promoting the adoption of green and renewable energy in tea producing, in the producer segment of the trade. We make sure that they comply to conservation of high value ecosystem to mitigate the destruction of the natural forests or the natural ecosystems. So there is a rigorous program to have what we call a sustainable wood fuel program in factories, by factories. And it is one of the requirements by the regulator to ensure that before you put up a factory, you must demonstrate that you have a ratio of 1 to 4, 4 hectares of tea to 1 acre of eucalyptus plantation. And you must demonstrate that your wood planting program is sustainable to ensure that you harvest wood continuously throughout the year without encroaching and destroying the natural high value ecosystem in terms of destroying the indigenous trees in the forests. We are promoting the adoption of solar energy system in terms of the utilization of solar energy in withering to cut down on energy cost, the utilization of solar energy in doing the security lighting and domestic lighting within the labor lines in the estates. This is done to promote the adoption of renewable energy, and it's done to cut down on energy cost. The reason why our members are doing this, we've done a study and we discovered that energy is one of the largest cost component in tea production. So the cost of energy from the grid is very high. Grid and wood fuel takes 30% of tea production cost. So there was need to come up with an appropriate energy mix that is affordable and sustainable. And that drove the sector towards moving in that direction to mitigate, number one, climate change, because when you destroy the natural forest, this is what usually helps in as a carbon sink at the same time in rain cycle. So the first thing is to protect the forest through those programs to ensure that our operations does not negatively impact the climate, the climatical conditions where tea is grown. So another reason is our members are involved, and us as an association, we have been supporting various producers and producers in what we call wood plantation, apart from wood, but indigenous trees plantation programs in the tea growing areas. So we support them through funds to enable them acquire the indigenous forests, the indigenous trees or the high value trees, and use them to replant the natural forest to improve the ecosystems of the tea growing areas. So our members are very alive to the impact of climate change, and it is in the interest of the trade to make sure that we have strategies and mitigation measures towards the same. Thank you very much. In terms of the contribution of tea to our membership countries' economies, tea is one of the largest contributors of the GDPs in our 10 membership countries. And it's important to realize, to note that despite over relying on export of bulk teas alone, we are still negotiating with governments, the various membership governments, to review certain taxes and levies that have been introduced to hinder value addition, because by traditionally exporting bulk teas to the other countries, we are basically exporting job opportunities. We are building other countries' economies. So currently the environment, the investment environment, is not very conducive, it's hostile towards the growth of the value addition segment. So we are in negotiation with the governments, government of Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, for them to review certain tax policies so that we can attract both direct foreign investments in the value addition space. Because we believe that if we add value to the teas, currently the CTC teas from the African countries, we should be able to contribute more in terms of revenue and to farmers and the foreign exchange and to the countries. Number two, we are looking at implementing policies to encourage diversification, product diversification. The countries have over-relied in 2024 because the countries never diversified. They depended solely on the export of bulk CTCT. And the market, based on my previous presentation, the global tea production was very high. So the supply was more than demand. The supply was so higher than what the market could absorb. So if policies are developed that are conducive to product diversification in terms of diversifying into orthodox teas, the specialty teas, and other categories of teas, there are quite a number of products that can be made out of tea, including tea wine, instant teas, ready-to-drink teas, iced teas. These are avenues that we can use to improve the value of the African teas. The beauty is the African tea, including Kenyan teas, they are produced in near organic conditions. Where teas are grown in our African member states, we grow tea under rain-fed agriculture, and in those areas, we do not use agrochemicals, we don't use pesticides, neither do we use herbicides in tea growing. So when you analyze the minimum residue levels in the tea, the MRI levels, they are extremely lower compared to our competitors. So this is something that we need to capitalize on in terms of leveraging on our near organic nature of the teas we produce, whether black or orthodox or other varieties, to improve value and contribute more to the country's economy. When we grow the value addition component, we'll be creating more opportunities in our membership countries, and this will positively contribute to the growth and development of the countries and to the socioeconomic development of the rural livelihoods that are supported by tea. Thank you very much. 2024 was a very difficult year for quite a number of sectors. One single advice I can give to industry leaders like myself is, number one, adaptability. Leaders must be able to make quick decisions to adapt to the changing economic environment to make their businesses remain afloat. It is so important because you cannot keep on doing the same thing and expect different results in the face of the changing business environment. Some historian called Charles Darwin came up with the theory of natural selection many years back. And in his theory, he stated that in the struggle for existence, organisms that adapt easily to the changing environment survives. People think this was an historical theory, but it is applicable to date in every business for the sustainability and for the resilience of the businesses. The ability to change and to adapt to the changing business environment. Technologically, we need to adopt the utilization of technology. I know AI is taking over the spaces in business. We should not be resistant to the changing technological advancement in every sector. Let us embrace technology to improve the efficiencies of our operations and increase the margins of our businesses. Thank you. Thank you very much. The emerging consumer trends that the tea industry has faced over time is the changing taste and preferences of the younger generation. So the younger generation, they are going for trendy teas that can resonate well with that generation. We have the Gen Zs who have become the majority in terms of the consumer population. And currently there are quite a number of innovations that have been done in the tea sector to be able to meet the demands of this emerging consumer population of the Gen Zs and the millennials. Now, that means that instead of the traditional teas brewed traditionally and drunk, this generation, they are going for flavored teas. They are going for specialty teas because the population is becoming more conscious about health. So they want healthy drinks, and tea must be propelled in that direction. And that is the reason why this space of the flavored teas with various flavors and spices are gaining momentum because of the health aspects of those drinks. This does not mean that the conventional tea is unhealthy. Last week in America, they passed it as a law that tea can be promoted as a healthy drink as long as the tea is consumed in unflavored form. That means that if you drink tea without flavor, you will still benefit from the health benefits of tea from the polyphenols and the catechins in the tea. So therefore, we need just to continuously innovate to grow this space of flavored teas, the ready-to-drink teas, the instant teas, the iced teas, to make sure that we capture this market and change with the changing consumer behavior and trends.